Okay, if we're naming this like an ionic compound, the hydrogen only has one positive oxidation number, so it's simply called hydrogen. The sulfur, since it's a monoatomic anion, a single atom that has a negative charge, all we do is change its ending to IDE. So instead of sulfur, it becomes sulfide. To name the acid then, we get rid of the gen, we change the IDE to IC, we join it all together, and we get hydro sulfuric acid. Put the what in there? The 2 isn't included in the ionic name. It isn't included in the acid name. Okay? When we're naming ionic compounds, we don't use prefixes. The prefixes are reserved for covalent compounds.
So we're naming acids?
Yes, we're naming acids. That's what it says right up here. Organic, non-organic acids. I know, really. Okay. All right. Well, y'all know I kind of get kind of spacey some days too. Everybody does. Okay. All right. Let's try. Now, look, guys. You really need to focus. Okay. You really need to focus your energy here on this, because if your mind is somewhere else, you know that you're going to see that result on the test. All right. We've been naming 4 categories so far. You got to keep up with what all those categories are and how to tell when you have one category or another. On the test, I'm not going to tell you this is an organic compound. You have to know it when you see it. Okay? And that's what we're going to practice after we finish acids. But if you've been paying attention closely up to now, you'll know it when we get there. Evan, did you have a question?
No.
Okay, let's try one more binary compound then, okay? Name it like an ionic compound, then change the name to be that of an acid.
If it doesn't end with that IDE, can you still change it to IC?
There is a case where you do that, but this is one that's going to have an IDE ending. Okay, has everybody named it like an ionic compound?
No, not yet.
Well, what are you waiting on?
I had to get this because you have my...
Okay, just do it. You're not supposed to be using my test references. Those are for tests.
I'll go for that. Yeah.
Please. Those are only for tests. Well, people tend to keep them or they make marks on them and then they don't have what I need for the test, you know? And then Cole won't have a test reference, you know, so.
I don't have one now.
You don't know one now?
Everybody should have test references because the white copy is the same as the yellow copy.
Oh, yeah, I have that.
Okay. All right. What's this called?
Oh, is that right?
What?
That's right.
As an ionic compound, it's called hydrogen iodide. To name it like an acid, we get rid of GEN, change IDE to IC. Yes, hydroiodic acid. Okay? Now this is how you name binary acids. Okay? Binary acids are the only acids that have the hydro prefix. Are you listening? Binary acids, only two elements, not two atoms, two elements, only two elements. Binary acids are the only ones that have the hydro prefix. We're going to go now to naming acids that have more than two elements now. Oxy acids. Acids that have oxygen in the formula. Okay? With all non-organic acids, oxy acids. We start the naming process by naming it as if it is an ionic compound. With all non-organic acids, we start the naming process by naming it as if it is an ionic compound. Okay? So we're going to start by naming this like an ionic compound. It has more than two elements. If it has more than two elements, where do we start? By naming it like an ionic compound. What's the rule when you have more than two elements? What is the rule for naming ionic compounds when you have more than two elements? What is the rule when you have more than two elements in a formula? Where do you look? Polyatomic ions list. Guys, you have to know this. Okay? Where do you look when you have more than two elements in the formula? Okay? So what polyatomic ion looks like some part of this formula? That's what we're trying to figure out. Well, we can actually just start with the sulfate ion over here. Okay? There is a hydrogen sulfate, you're right. Alright? But sulfate will work for this too. Okay? Let's name this as if it is well, see, when you said hydrogen sulfate, that's the name of a different kind of ion. Were you naming this hydrogen sulfate?
No, I was just looking over you and trying to find it.
Okay. Hydrogen sulfate. Okay, SO4, 2 negative is sulfate. You put two hydrogens on there, you get that. That also happens to be the name of an ion, where you have just one hydrogen and the whole thing has a negative charge. It's also called bisulfate. Okay? But for this naming process, we're going to start here. Okay? Alright. Unlike binary acids, this is an oxy acid. It's a different set of rules, somewhat. Sulfate. Unlike the binary acids, we're not going to just drop the gen, we're going to drop the entire hydrogen off the name. And we're going to change ATE to IC. This then becomes sulfuric acid. when you have an oxy acid, so an oxy acid is going to have a polyatomic anion that includes oxygen. Sulfate includes oxygen, it's a polyatomic ion. We're going to name it like an ionic compound. Then to name the acid, you drop hydrogen off the front entirely and change 8 to ic. So binary acids you drop just the gin. Oxy acids, you drop the whole hydrogen. Okay? That's what's in a car battery, yes. Okay? So this is not sulfate. What is this? Sulfite. So we're going to name this hydrogen sulfite. Okay? We don't want to call this sulfuric acid. That's not the same thing. So when we have an ite ending, we're going to change it to something else. 8 endings get changed to ic. Ite endings get changed to OUS. And again, we drop the hydrogen from the front. Sulfurous acid.
How do you know to put AC or ice?
Yes, you do know. Sulfates have 4 oxygens. Sulfite has 3. Okay? Everybody got it? Okay, so name these acids.